Keanu Reeves had just finished shopping at the supermarket. He grabbed a few grocery bags and was walking toward his car. The sky was changing colors as the sun began to set. The golden and orange hues filled the sky, making the whole atmosphere feel calm and peaceful. It was a quiet evening in Los Angeles, and Keanu, in his simple jacket and sunglasses, was lost in his thoughts about what to watch that night. He wasn't in a hurry. The kind of day when nothing unusual ever happens. At least that's what he thought. As Keanu walked along the sidewalk with the soft evening breeze gently ruffling his hair, he suddenly felt something lightly brush against his leg. Surprised, he stopped in his tracks and looked down to see what it was. To his surprise, there was a small blonde girl standing in front of him. She was about 6 years old, wearing a cute pink dress, but her face didn't look happy at all. Instead, it was filled with fear. She was trembling slightly, and her breathing was quick, like she had been running for some time. Keanu bent down slightly, trying to look less intimidating to the little girl. He gave her a soft smile, hoping to calm her down. "Are you okay?" he asked gently, not wanting to startle her. The girl didn't say anything. She just stood there, her wide eyes filled with fear. Keanu's heart went out to her. She was clearly frightened. For a moment, the two of them stood there in silence. Keanu noticed that every now and then the girl's eyes flicked past him, like she was watching something, or someone, behind him. It wasn't very noticeable, but Keanu's instincts told him something wasn't right. He glanced behind him, trying to see if anyone seemed suspicious. But all he could see were a few people leaving the store and heading to their cars. Everything looked normal. But the way the girl was acting, it felt like something was off. He asked again, this time in a softer voice, "Are you lost?" The girl didn't respond. She just stared at him, her eyes wide and full of panic. Keanu could see tears starting to form in her eyes. She was holding them back, trying not to cry. Keanu crouched down to her level, trying to comfort her without making her feel more afraid. "It's okay," he said softly. "Do you want me to help you find someone?" Before the little girl could answer, a voice suddenly cut through the air, pulling Keanu's attention away from her. "There you are," the voice called out. Keanu looked up to see a woman walking toward them quickly. She had blonde hair and was dressed in a light blue blouse and jeans. Her smile seemed friendly, but Keanu couldn't shake the feeling that there was something off about the situation. The woman approached the little girl and grabbed her shoulders, her tone filled with fake relief. "My God, you scared me," she exclaimed, her smile wide but strangely tense. "You can't just run off like that." Keanu stood up slowly, not sure what to make of the situation. He watched closely as the woman gently pulled the girl toward her. The girl didn't react in any way. She didn't smile or even seem happy to see the woman. She just looked away, her face still pale, her body tense. Keanu could tell that something was wrong, and he wasn't sure if this woman was someone the girl truly knew. The woman looked up at Keanu and gave him a friendly smile. "Thank you so much for staying with her," she said. "I'm her aunt." Keanu studied the girl carefully. The little girl didn't seem relieved at all. In fact, she still looked frightened, avoiding eye contact with both the woman and Keanu. He was concerned. He crouched down again, trying to speak to the girl gently. "Is everything okay?" he asked her. But the girl just looked at the ground and didn't say anything. The woman quickly interjected, her voice still sweet but with a slight edge. "Yes, she's just scared because she got lost for a little while," she explained, as if trying to brush the situation off. "But everything is fine now." "Isn't that right, sweetheart?" she added, looking at the girl, but the little girl didn't respond. She didn't even look up. She just stood there, stiff as a board, not moving or speaking. Keanu's concern grew even more. He had seen lost children before. Usually, they cried, they ran to their parents, or at least they spoke. But this girl? She was different. There was something about her that made Keanu's stomach twist with unease. He looked at the woman and asked, his voice now more cautious, "Are you sure she's okay?" The woman quickly nodded, too quickly, as if she was trying to convince Keanu more than herself. "Oh yes, she's just a little shaken up. She got scared for a moment, but she's fine now," the woman insisted. But Keanu didn't believe her. The girl was still trembling, and there was no sign of relief on her face. She hadn't said a word, and there was something about the way she was standing, her hands clenched into fists, that made Keanu worry. This wasn't just a lost child. Keanu kept his gaze on the girl. He had to know what was going on. He softened his voice and asked, "Do you want to go with her?" "It's okay, I won't leave you alone." The girl's eyes flickered up to him for a split second, but she didn't answer. Her hands were still clenched tightly by her sides. Keanu noticed that her lips trembled, but no words came out. Before Keanu could say anything else, The woman grabbed the girl's shoulders, squeezing her a little harder than seemed necessary. "Come on, sweetheart. Say something," the woman urged, her voice more forceful now. "We're all fine, aren't we? Thank him and let's go." But the girl didn't move. She didn't look at the woman, didn't say a word. Her eyes stayed fixed on the ground. Keanu couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. He had a gut feeling, one that he trusted without a doubt. He wasn't a police officer, but his instincts told him that this was more than just a lost child and her worried aunt. There was something deeper, something hidden beneath the surface. The woman looked at Keanu with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She was still trying to play the role of the concerned guardian, but her expression was tight, like she was forcing herself to act normal. Keanu stepped forward slightly, putting more space between the woman and the girl. "Are you sure you're her aunt?" he asked carefully. The woman's smile faltered for just a second. She hesitated, like she wasn't sure what to say next. Then she quickly recovered and nodded. Yes, I'm her aunt," she repeated too quickly. "She always runs off like this. You know how kids are, right?" She laughed, but it didn't sound genuine. It was a nervous laugh, as though she was trying to cover up the lie. Keanu didn't buy it. He looked at the little girl again. She didn't react to the woman calling her an aunt. She didn't show any recognition, no relief, no happiness. She just stood there, staring blankly at the ground. Keanu was certain now. This woman wasn't telling the truth. Something was wrong. Keanu decided to press further. "What's her name?" he asked. The woman's smile wavered for a second, and she quickly replied, "Clara." She said it so quickly, almost too quickly, like she was trying to avoid Keanu asking any more questions. Keanu looked at the girl. He studied her face carefully. Clara didn't react to her name. She didn't smile or look at the woman who claimed to be her aunt. She didn't do anything. She just stood there lifeless. And that's when it hit Keanu. When he first found Clara, she hadn't said a word to him. She hadn't spoken at all. So how did this woman know her name? How could she be so sure? It didn't make sense. Keanu turned to face the woman. "You're sure you're her aunt?" he asked again, his tone more serious now. The woman's smile faded. She stood up a little straighter, her body stiffening. "Yes, I told you. I'm her aunt," she insisted. But Keanu could see the tension in her eyes. She was lying, and Keanu wasn't about to let her get away with it. The woman suddenly grabbed the girl's hand, pulling her toward the parking lot. Keanu noticed how tightly she was gripping the girl's wrist. The girl winced in pain, but she didn't say anything. She just let herself be pulled along, her eyes still wide with fear. Keanu stepped forward and blocked their path. "I think it would be best to make sure everything is okay," he said firmly. "Maybe we should ask the store security to help." The woman's eyes flashed with a mix of anger and panic. She didn't expect him to push back. For a moment, her smile disappeared completely. She stepped forward, her voice low and threatening. "We don't have time for this anymore," she said. "Let's go, sweetheart." She jerked the girl's arm, trying to pull her away from Keanu. But the girl looked at Keanu one more time. At that moment, Keanu saw it. The silent plea for help in her eyes. It was clear. She was asking for his help, begging him silently to do something. Keanu's heart raced. He had to act now. There was no more time to waste. Keanu moved quickly. He stepped in front of the woman and stood between her and the girl. The woman froze for a moment. The smile was completely gone from her face. Her eyes narrowed, filled with a cold, calculating anger. "This is your last chance," she said, her voice dripping with venom. "Stay out of this." But Keanu wasn't going to back down. He could see the girl's terror, and he wasn't going to let her go with this woman. Not without a fight. He felt his pulse quicken as the moment stretched on, each second more intense than the last. The woman pulled on the girl's wrist again, trying to drag her away, but the girl hesitated. She tried to pull away from her, but the woman tightened her grip, pulling her forcefully toward the car. The girl's body jerked forward, and Keanu saw the silent terror in her face. She was trapped, unable to escape. Keanu felt a chill run down his spine. He knew that if he didn't act now, he might never get another chance to help the little girl. With every fiber of his being, he knew this wasn't just a lost child. This was something far worse, and Keanu was the only one who could stop it. He couldn't let the woman take her away. Time was running out, and Keanu knew he had to act. He was the only one who could save her. Keanu took a deep breath. He knew that if he acted too quickly, he might scare the woman, and she could run away with the child, and he might never see her again. He had to stay calm. He had to be careful, no matter how much he wanted to stop her right now. "You seem to be in a hurry," Keanu said, his voice soft but steady, watching the woman carefully. He could see the tension in her expression. "But before you go, can the girl at least tell me she's okay?" The woman froze for just a second, her face flicking with a hint of worry. It was a quick moment, almost unnoticeable, but to Keanu it was enough. She was hiding something. Clara, the girl, didn't react at all, still standing quietly. The woman's smile returned, but it was forced and her eyes looked colder. "She already did, didn't she?" Keanu raised an eyebrow, unconvinced. "Actually no, she hasn't said a word." The woman's face stiffened and her smile faded. She tried to keep calm, but Keanu could tell something was wrong. "She's shy," she said quickly, but Keanu wasn't buying it. Her voice didn't sound convincing at all. "Shy or scared?" Keanu asked, his voice now firmer, challenging her. The woman's posture straightened even more, her shoulders tight. "Look," she said, her tone more defensive, "I really appreciate your concern, but we're leaving now." Keanu didn't step aside. "I just want to hear it from her," he said, his voice calm but serious. The woman's eyes darted around the parking lot, like she was looking for someone or something. Keanu noticed the movement. She was getting nervous and he didn't think it was just about him. He decided to test her. Keanu took a small step back, acting as though he was about to let them leave. Clara tried to follow him. It was a tiny movement, but Keanu saw it clearly. The woman saw it too, and her grip on Clara's arm tightened immediately, pulling the girl back to her side. That was all the confirmation Keanu needed. He wasn't going to let them go. Without a word, Keanu stepped in front of them, blocking their path completely. "Is there a problem?" he asked, his voice now carrying an unmistakable authority. The woman stopped, her smile completely gone now, replaced by pure anger. Her eyes narrowed, filled with barely controlled rage. "I already told you I'm her aunt. This is getting out of hand now. Please step aside." Keanu stayed right where he was, looking her in the eye. He wasn't going to back down. "If you're her family, then tell me this," he said. "Why did she just ask for help?" The woman's teeth clenched, but she didn't answer. Clara looked up at Keanu, her eyes filled with fear. Keanu could see the fear in the girl's eyes, and then Clara did something that made it all clear. She looked up at him and moved her lips, but no sound came out. She whispered the word, barely audible. "Help." It was just a whisper, but it was enough for Keanu. He couldn't hesitate anymore. He had to act. "You can't take her," he said firmly, his voice now strong and unwavering. The woman's face drained of color for a moment, but then she quickly recovered, her face turning back to cold anger. "Oh, come on, of course she does," she said, forcing a smile. "Clara, sweetheart, tell him everything's fine." Clara's eyes welled up with tears. Keanu knew he couldn't wait any longer. He pulled out his phone from his pocket and quickly dialed a number. The woman saw him pull out his phone and moved fast. She lunged to grab Clara again, but the girl twisted away, trying to break free. Everything happened in a split second. Clara looked up at Keanu, her lips moving again, but before she could say anything, the woman lunged forward, her face filled with rage. The moment was over and everything exploded into action. The woman grabbed Clara's wrist again, this time much harder, yanking her away from Keanu with force. "Let's go, sweetheart," the woman said, her voice low and urgent, filled with a threat. Clara tried to resist, but she was too small to fight against the woman's strength. Keanu couldn't wait any longer. He stepped forward, blocking the woman's path. "Let her go," he said firmly, his voice low and powerful. The woman froze for a moment, her eyes blazing with hatred. "Get out of my way," she spat, her voice now cold and sharp. All the fake sweetness she had tried to use earlier was gone. Keanu didn't move. He stayed in front of them. "If you're really her family," Keanu said, narrowing his eyes, "then tell me why she just asked for help." The woman's lips pressed together, but she didn't answer. Clara stood there, her eyes filled with unshed tears. She looked up at Keanu and in a barely audible whisper, she said the words that broke Keanu's heart. "Don't let this woman take me." Keanu felt a chill run down his spine. That was all the proof he needed. In that moment, everything changed. The woman couldn't pretend anymore. Her face twisted in fury, and without warning, she shoved Clara aside, pushing her away from Keanu. Then she lunged at him. Keanu was ready. He caught the woman's arms before she could touch him. He planted his feet firmly on the ground, his muscles tense. "You have no idea who you're dealing with," the woman hissed, her eyes filled with desperation. "I know exactly who I'm dealing with," Keanu replied, his grip tightening. "A kidnapper." For a brief instant, the woman's eyes widened in panic. Then she did something Keanu wasn't expecting. She screamed, "Help! He's attacking me!" A few people in the parking lot turned their heads at the sound. Keanu remained calm, not reacting. "Can someone call security, please?" he called out. "This woman is trying to abduct a child." The woman struggled violently, trying to break free, but Keanu didn't let go. "You have no idea what you're doing," she hissed through clenched teeth. Keanu ignored her and turned to Clara. The girl was standing frozen, her eyes wide with fear. Keanu knew she was too scared to move. "Clara, stay with me," he said softly, trying to keep her focused. Clara blinked several times as if she were waking up from a trance. She finally ran toward him and clung to his arm. That's when everything fell apart. The woman used the moment to yank Clara away, pulling her with all the strength she had left. Keanu lost his balance for just a moment, and that was all the woman needed. She broke free and ran. "Hey, someone stop that woman!" Keanu shouted, but no one reacted fast enough. The woman darted between the cars in the parking lot, desperate to escape. She wasn't running aimlessly. Keanu could see she knew exactly where she was going. Keanu didn't waste a second. He grabbed Clara's hand tightly and took off after her. "Hold on tight, Clara," he called out. Clara held on with both hands, her small legs struggling to keep up. Keanu pushed forward, knowing he couldn't let her get away. The woman ran faster, her face a mask of pure panic. She shot Keanu with a look full of hatred. "You have no idea who you're dealing with," she spat. But then a new sound cut through the air. It was a scream, loud and desperate, from the other side of the parking lot. The chaos in the parking lot grew louder. People were turning, shouting. But the woman kept running, weaving between the cars. Keanu didn't stop. His heart was pounding in his chest, but he wasn't going to let this woman get away. He held onto Clara's hand tightly and ran after her, faster and faster. She knew the area, and then a scary thought hit Keanu. She didn't pick Clara by chance. She already knew her name before Clara even spoke. Suddenly, everything started to make sense. This wasn't just a random kidnapping. The woman had been watching Clara before, hiding in the store, waiting for the right moment. She must have heard Clara's mother calling her name. That explained everything. This woman had planned it all. Keanu knew he couldn't let her get away now. But before Keanu could do anything, a loud scream pierced the air. "Clara! Clara!" Keanu stopped in his tracks. His head snapped toward the sound. A woman, barefoot with messy hair, was running across the parking lot. She was screaming as loud as she could. She looked frantic, and her eyes were searching the cars around her. "Clara, where are you?" Her voice was filled with panic. Keanu felt a lump in his throat, but he kept his focus on Clara. Clara let out a small, choked sob, her tiny fingers clutching Keanu's hand even tighter. Then, in a small, trembling voice, she whispered, "Mommy?" Her voice was full of both relief and fear, like she wasn't sure what was happening but was so glad to hear her mom's voice. Keanu didn't hesitate. Without thinking twice, he scooped Clara up into his arms and ran toward the woman. The moment the woman saw her daughter, her face lit up with joy. She cried out, "Clara?" She dropped to her knees on the ground, arms wide open. Clara, seeing her mom, immediately bolted toward her. She sprinted as fast as she could, her little legs carrying her straight into her mom's loving arms. The two of them hugged each other so tightly, not letting go. They both cried uncontrollably, so happy to be together again. The woman rocked Clara back and forth, whispering words of comfort. "My love, my baby, are you okay? Are you hurt?" Clara couldn't even answer. She was too busy sobbing into her mom's shoulder, not able to stop crying from the fear and relief she felt. Keanu stood there for a moment, watching the mother and daughter, feeling a wave of relief wash over him. But he knew he couldn't relax yet. The kidnapper wasn't going to just give up. Keanu quickly turned around, looking for the woman. He spotted her standing just a few meters away, watching them. Her face was pale, but it wasn't a look of fear. It was a look of pure anger and hatred. She wasn't just upset that she'd been caught. She was furious. She was looking at Keanu as if she wanted revenge. "You just made a huge mistake," she said, her voice cold as ice. Keanu clenched his fists but stayed calm. "The only mistake here is thinking you could walk away with this child." The woman opened her mouth, probably to say something back, but she never got the chance. Sirens suddenly filled the air. Keanu looked over and saw police cars speeding into the parking lot. The woman froze when she saw the police coming. Her eyes darted around, searching for a way to escape, but it was too late. She could tell she was trapped. Her shoulders dropped in defeat as she realized she wasn't getting away. A police officer got out of one of the cars and walked toward them. "Sir, we need you to come with us to give a statement," the officer said. Keanu nodded, still watching Clara and her mom. They were holding each other tightly, Clara's small body trembling in her mom's arms. Keanu knew he needed to stay with them for a little longer. The officer pulled out a notepad and a pen ready to take notes. "Can you describe exactly what happened?" the officer asked, looking at Keanu. Keanu started telling the officer everything that had happened. He talked about how Clara had run into him in the parking lot, how she had asked for help, and how the woman had tried to take her. He explained how the woman acted suspiciously, and how she had tried to drag Clara away. He told the officer how the woman had frozen in anger when she realized she was caught. The officer nodded as he wrote everything down. Then he said something that made Keanu feel a chill run down his spine. This woman was already wanted by the police. Keanu's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" he asked. The officer sighed, looking serious. "We've received reports of this woman trying to abduct children in other places, supermarkets, malls, but she always got away. Clara is the first child to escape." Keanu felt his stomach drop. Clara wasn't the first child this woman had tried to take, but she was the first one to get away safely. Keanu couldn't believe it. He had been so close to not helping, to walking away, but now he realized how important his choice had been. Clara was safe, and that was all that mattered. The officers made sure Clara and her mother were taken to a safe place, and Keanu stayed for a while, watching as the situation settled down. He could still hear Clara's soft cries in her mother's arms, but they were no longer filled with fear. They were cries of relief and love. Keanu stood quietly for a moment, looking up at the darkening sky. He didn't understand why this had happened, why he was the one who had gotten involved, but one thing was clear. He couldn't have ignored what he had seen. Sometimes one small decision can change everything. Today Clara was safe because Keanu made the choice to help. As Keanu turned to leave, he heard Clara's small voice call out to him. She turned and gave him a shy smile. "Thank you, mister," she said softly. Keanu smiled gently. "Always ask for help when you need it. The world needs more brave people like you." Then Keanu walked back to his car and drove away, leaving the parking lot behind. It had been the place where a small act of courage had saved a life. And the lesson was clear. The world can be a scary place, but there will always be people willing to help. Small acts of courage can save lives. If you enjoyed this story, share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories filled with adventure, mystery, and excitement. Your support means the world, and it helps keep these stories coming. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.